The photo hung in their living room for 17 years, a mundane family portrait from a beach vacation. But on a quiet Tuesday evening, under the dim glow of a single lamp, the father noticed something new in the background. Just beyond the smiling children building a sandcastle, partially obscured by a beach umbrella, stood a figure no one remembered being there. The air in the room grew thick and stale, carrying the faint, metallic scent of old pennies. His fingers, tracing the glass over the figure, felt an unnatural cold seeping through to his skin. And when he looked closer, he saw its eyes in the photograph weren't looking at the children. They were staring directly at the camera, at him, right now. A low, wet scratching sound began to emanate from the wall behind the frame, as if something was trying to dig its way out of the picture. For 17 years, they had unknowingly given a silent watcher in their home a perfect view of every birthday, every Christmas, every private moment of their lives. My sister didn't run away. She was concealed right before our eyes. The photograph held the truth in its faded colors. We looked at it every day and never saw what was staring back at us. A newspaper headline: "Teen vanishes. A hand rips the portrait from the wall." This is the story of how a lie, framed and perfect, finally cracked. Home video footage of a suburban street in autumn. Leaves blow across a neat, two-story house in Columbus, Ohio. My name is Emily. This was our home. My parents, Robert and Linda, my brother Mike, me, and my sister Sarah. Sarah was the light, popular, kind, an artist. Her presence held a warmth that seemed to push back the shadows of our old house. But even light can be swallowed by the dark. She was 17, all laughter and paint-stained fingers. I was just 13, watching her world from the edges. In those old photos, we'd make silly faces at the camera, a bubble of innocence preserved on glossy paper. The memory carries the scent of turpentine and summer grass, a tactile echo of a sticky afternoon. But even then, a whisper of unease clung to the edges of the frame, a detail missed until it was far too late. The official story claims that on November 12, 2006, after a fight with our parents about college applications, Sarah packed a bag, withdrew $200 from her bank account, and vanished. No note, just gone. That's the clean, simple version they give you. But the truth has a smell of damp earth and a sound of a door you can't quite close. Then, real news footage from 2006, a grainy photo of Sarah. The police called it a runaway, but my gut, that tiny, screaming voice inside a 13-year-old girl, knew it was wrong. Sarah wouldn't do that, not to me. We shared every secret, every fear. The room still holds that air of stale lavender and old paper. A damp chill clings to the upholstery, cold enough to raise gooseflesh. And from somewhere behind that silent television, a faint, rhythmic scratching begins. On the main wall hung a large, professional family portrait. Robert, Linda, Mike, Emily, and Sarah all smiled with unsettling uniformity. After she disappeared, my parents changed. Mom became a ghost, haunting our home with her hollow presence. Our father became an impenetrable fortress. He had one unbreakable rule. That portrait remained on the wall. "She is still part of this family," he would declare, his voice carrying the finality of granite. The air in the room grew thick and stale, as if holding its breath with us. The house had transformed into a shrine, a permanent, agonizing monument to what was lost. Each covered chair, each blanketed table, whispered of absence, pressing the memory into her like a bruise. The air held the stale scent of abandonment, old wood, forgotten dust, and the faint metallic hint of long-dried fears. Every step echoed in the hollow rooms, a rhythmic reminder that she walked alone in this shell of her past. Emily was clearing out the house after her father's funeral. Her mother had died 2 years after Sarah, a loss they called a broken heart. Now her father was gone too, leaving this house to his final, solitary silence. Mike had moved to Seattle, building a new life far from these memories. The grim task of sifting through the wreckage was mine alone. I opened a box labeled Sarah's Room, and inside lay her sketchbooks. These were her journals, filled with pages of private thoughts. And in the final volume, entries revealed a secret boyfriend. The diary mentioned someone older, someone she only called Jay. Her fear was a tangible thing. She was too terrified to tell our parents. The final entry carried the stale scent of old paper and whispered a terrible promise. It read, "Jay says he has a plan for us. A fresh start." Emily's hands trembled as she clutched the journal, her voice a fragile whisper in the dim room. "I'm terrified," she confessed, the admission hanging in the musty air like a ghost. "But I love him." She brought it to the cold case detective, whose sympathy was genuine but ultimately hollow. Jay was a dead end, a phantom in the records, leaving no scent, no echo, no trail to follow. The click of the final lock echoed like a tomb sealing shut. She stood there, the air thick with the scent of old plaster and abandonment. Her gaze was locked on the last artifact of a life now dismantled. A hollow resignation settled in her chest before she finally whispered, "And then I had to take it down." I stood on a rickety chair, my fingers brushing the thick, dusty frame. A faint scent of mildew and old paper hung in the stagnant air as I lifted it. Then, something shifted. A subtle rustling sound from behind the backing. A small, folded square of paper tumbled free, landing silently on the floorboards below. A Polaroid, its edges slightly curled from age. Emily's voice was a tense whisper. It was a test shot from the portrait session. The photographer must have taken it to check the lighting, she explained. But the air grew thick, carrying the faint, acrid smell of ozone and old chemicals. This photograph was different. Sarah wasn't posed. She was turned, her gaze drifting to the side of the room, her smile soft and authentic. But in the glass of a framed painting on the wall behind her, a shape blurred the reflection. It was just a smudge of shadow, yet undeniably the form of a man. He was there in the studio, watching, unseen by everyone but the camera. Emily's breath caught in her throat as she saw the camera in his hands. The air in the private studio turned frigid and thick with the scent of stale dust. A creeping dread coiled in her chest. This space was meant for family alone. Every instinct screamed that their sanctuary had been violated. Emily's fingers trembled as she held the Polaroid, its chemical scent sharp in the stale air. Her eyes narrowed, scanning the faded image for any detail the naked eye might have missed. Then she saw it. A faint, distorted shape in the glass window's reflection behind the main subject. She froze, the damp chill of the room suddenly palpable as the image's true horror came into focus. That blurry face and dark jacket consumed my every thought. The obsession drove me to find the shuttered photography studio. I discovered the owner had retired to Florida, living in quiet obscurity. With trembling hands, I emailed him the scan and waited in the heavy quiet. On the porch, the man's face fell as he stared at the laptop screen, his breath catching in his throat. Within the hour, my phone rang. His voice came through shaky and thin. The air in the room grew thick, carrying the faint scent of dust and old paper. "Emily," he whispered, the words sticking in his throat. I remember that day now. The studio owner revealed my father had specifically requested a more expensive photographer for our session, a freelancer he'd found online. The owner himself had merely assisted that day, handing over our family portraits to this stranger. When I pressed for the name, the air in the studio grew thick with the scent of stale chemicals and old paper. He finally whispered it. Jason Miller. Emily drove with grim purpose, the road unwinding before her. The county records office materialized through the downpour, its concrete facade stark against the gray sky. Her tires hissed on the wet asphalt as she pulled into a vacant spot. She spoke the name into the stale air of the car, a whisper of ozone and old paper. Jason Miller. My fingers hovered over the public records database, the screen's cold glow casting sharp shadows across the desk. Then I found it. A marriage license, dated 2005. The air grew thick, carrying the faint scent of old paper and something metallic, like iron. Jason Miller and Linda Carter, my mother. My mother was married before, a secret first marriage, annulled after just a year. She never, ever mentioned it to anyone. According to the record, Jason was 10 years older, a would-be photographer. The omission itself was a heavy, silent weight in the room. Emily sat frozen in her car, the world outside blurred into a meaningless haze. The fragments of truth didn't align. They collided violently, sharp edges slicing through her understanding. Her mother's hidden ex-husband, the mysterious Jay, the photographer her father deliberately commissioned. Each connection felt like a cold wire tightening around her chest, the air thick with the scent of old secrets and betrayal. My eyes fell back to the Polaroid, to Sarah's face. There was no fear in her eyes as she looked at the photographer. Instead, her gaze held a quiet, unnerving recognition. It was the look of someone greeting an old, intimate friend. And then I understood the ultimate lie. It wasn't some random freelancer. My own father had hired Jason to take that picture. My father invited this man, my mother's ex, into our home, into our lives. He allowed Sarah to grow attached to him, to trust him completely. Was this his plan all along? A calculated, cruel form of retribution? A punishment, meticulously crafted, just for her. Emily raced back into the hollow house, her footsteps echoing through the vacant rooms. She reached the spot where the portrait had hung, her hands trembling as they traced the cold, smooth plaster. The air grew thick with the scent of aged paper and something faintly metallic. A monstrous idea took shape in the stillness, its edges sharpening in her mind. I slid the utility knife into the heavy backing of the portrait frame, the side that had faced the wall for years. A rough tear of cardboard and fabric echoed in the stillness. Emily's voice dropped to a whisper. Tucked inside the insulation, sealed behind our perfect, smiling faces, were letters, dozens of them. The handwriting was unmistakably Sarah's. The letter, addressed directly to me, trembled in my hand. The scent of old paper and ink filled the air as I read her silent words. My voice was a broken whisper as I began. My dearest M, if you're reading this, he finally did it. A heavy dread settled in my chest as I read the final, damning line. Dad found out about Jason. He said I've shamed the family, but I'm just like Mom. He's making me go away with Jason tonight. He's giving him money to take me, to fix his mistake. He says it's for the best. A damp chill clung to the air as I read her final words, the faint scent of ozone lingering like a warning. He says if I ever try to contact you or Mom, he'll hurt Jason. The threat hung there, metallic and absolute. I had to go. The finality in those words was a physical weight, pressing down on the words. I'm so sorry, don't forget me. Then, just the oppressive silence, and the distant, rhythmic drumming of the rain. All my love, dear Sarah. Emily sits amidst the wreckage of scattered letters, the portrait of her mother lying face down beside her. The air carries the scent of old paper and something metallic, like dried ink or rust. My father didn't kill her. In his twisted mind, he did something far worse. He orchestrated her disappearance. He paid off my mother's ex-husband, a man he clearly despised, to take his own daughter, to erase the living reminder of my mother's past, to maintain a perfect facade. That portrait wasn't a shrine. It was his trophy, proof of the perfect family he manufactured. And hidden behind it, the evidence of the terrible cost. The camera slowly zooms in on the family portrait lying face down on the floor. Then it flips open, revealing the smiling faces that now appear grotesque and unnatural. Emily's voice cuts through the heavy silence, tinged with a metallic edge of fear. Sarah spent 17 years living a life she never chose, silenced by a threat. I don't even know if she's still alive. After 2008, Jason Miller was erased from every record, every database, like he never existed. But now, with these letters in hand, the case has a pulse again. It's real. The detective feels the weight of the paper, smells the faint, clinging scent of mildew and old ink. Emily turns, her gaze locking directly with ours, hollowed out by a truth too vast to hold. And she is left with this. My childhood was an elaborate stage, meticulously constructed to conceal the rot beneath. The one person I trusted to keep me safe was the architect of our silent room. The truth hung before us all along, a specter in the stale air we breathed. It was there in the Polaroid of Sarah, her real, warm smile, a relic from before the line. The distorted shape of J swam in the glass, a phantom in the reflection. Emily's voice, a low whisper, cuts through the static hiss of the recording. So examine your family albums, scrutinize every detail. What lurked beyond the photographer's lens? And what truths did they deliberately choose to display?